You're good.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So I'd like to call to order the Economic Development Commission. This is Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. I don't know that we have Cheryl Mitchell with us tonight, but she was just appointed by the Board of Selectmen the other night. So that's great. We're trying to fill some empty slots, and she'll be a really valuable member to the commission.
Hi, Cheryl.
Cheryl there?
Oh, welcome.
Okay, so I don't know if there's anybody from the public that's here that wanted to chime in, but they certainly have an opportunity at the beginning of the meeting. Do you see anybody out there, Mike?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move right to old business. I did send along to the group a bunch of PDF documents that Tom Busino had sent along to us, kind of detailing the history of the South Willington Village, the historic district designation, the sidewalk committee, and a little bit of history about how we've tried to move this project forward. Within this context, what we're trying to do is build momentum. And part of that momentum is drafting regulations for the village. So Mike and John have done a good job, pulling together some regulations that offer, village residents and businesses expanded uses of their property. So it kind of runs in concert with a few of the things. That would be the study of the village, and certainly the plan of conservation and development. So it's a big piece of the puzzle that we've been trying to put together for the village. And I think Mike had sent them over to Krog, and they may well be back now. And he had presented a draft of them to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mike, I didn't know if you could give us a little bit of an update on those regulations.
Yeah, so we didn't do any referrals yet because we basically were making tweaks. So I presented them to Planning and Zoning. I explained the process that you guys had worked on them, that we wanted to get their informal feedback before we formalized the application. And so I took some feedback from them, which I went over with John, and he's made some tweaks to the proposal to reflect their comments, just so that we were closer when we actually did make application. And I think, John, do you want to go over
Sure.
what you modified?
Sure. So I'm going to share my screen. Can people see the memo on screen?
Most of it.
Yep, thank you, John.
Okay. So the memo is the cover memo, and then I have the regulations. And so based on input that Mike received from Planning and Zoning, a lot of which had to do with the sort of the South Willington Village study that was done a couple of years ago, I've made some tweaks to this. And those tweaks I made in red. So we don't have to focus on the whole thing. I'll just tell you what I've proposed to change. In the cover memo, I basically just say we've made changes based on your input, particularly relative to making sure that non-residential parking doesn't interfere with residential uses, and a clearer reference to the study that was done in 2015 called South Willington Preservation Planning Study, particularly for design standards. So I made it clear that we made some changes based on their input, and we're being responsive. Put a revision date at the top of the regulations. And so in this section B, which is the objectives, the overall objectives, I added a number 8, and I can make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. To reinforce the historic design palette of South Willington, and to encourage new development and redevelopment of existing structures to reflect this in material use and building design. So just to make clear that if you're building something new, it ought to look appropriate. And that's not a regulation, that's an objective. I didn't change anything about the allowed use. That really wasn't an issue, the allowable uses. Didn't change anything in the process, but in the parking section, this is D2, I added an addition. So what we require in parking is basically that when you are doing a new use or a change of use, we don't have arbitrary parking numbers like 4 per 1,000 square feet or, 15 per whatever. We basically require the applicants to come forward with their anticipated parking demand based on whatever use they have. If it's a restaurant, if it's a apartment building, whatever it is, we ask them to prove that what their parking demand is and prove that they have sufficient parking for it. So it basically is a show me your math market approach. But we added an additional Roman numeral 5 here, that in that study, we were requiring that the applicants demonstrate that peak parking demand of the proposed use will not compromise access or enjoyment of adjacent residential properties. So, if you've got, a brew pub or something like that, you don't have people parking all over the lawns of the guy next door, essentially.
Okay.
Didn't really change anything in overall site design standards, but we added a new section G for building design, and this was probably the most substantial change. And with your indulgence, I'll just read through it. So for all uses allowed by a special permit listed in section 512C, which is that use table, the applicant shall provide architectural elevation drawings with building materials visible from the public way, detailed and specified. These drawings shall be accompanied by a narrative document describing how the proposed building design draws upon and satisfies the South Willington Village design guidelines contained within the South Willington Preservation Planning Study produced in October 15, 2015, as part of the Town of Willington's Vibrant Community Initiatives. So we specifically call out this document, which has pretty extensive discussion and photo documentation of the design palette and the historic character of South Willington Village. And so we basically put it onto the design team of the applicant to say, listen, if you're putting in a new building, show us that you considered this document and show us that you considered these design guidelines. And in that way, it doesn't really become overly prescriptive, but it puts it on the applicant to basically show the commission. And again, it's a special permit, so there's a lot of leeway for the commission that it will fit in and be appropriate. And so that's basically the changes we made to the draft from last month, which I think hopefully will be responsive to those concerns.
Yeah, those are great, John. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for John about the regulations and the changes?
I'm all set.
So would the governing authority be the Economic Development Commission or the Planning and Zoning Commission?
This is a zoning regulation that we're proposing to them, so it would be entirely in the zoning commission's hands.
Got it. Thanks.
So John, should we make a motion to go ahead and approve the draft changes to the regulations?
Yeah, and so I guess the question for Mike would be, Mike, does PCC want this to be essentially an application from EDC or to put it in Planning and Zoning's lap and they would take it up on their own?
Yeah, I think that I want it to be a text amendment initiated by the commission on paper, because then we're less constricted with timeframes. We can kind of workshop it again if they need to. If we do it as an internal revision, we don't have to do a referral. So it'll be a little bit more flexible. We have a public hearing that's currently open now anyway, so we could probably take this up in April.
Well, that's great. So I would make a motion that we incorporate John's changes to the draft village regulations, and then we forward those regulations over to Planning and Zoning.
I'll
I
second.
second that motion.
Mike, how does that sound? Do you want to make changes to that, or Sam's back? Do we want to make changes to that motion, or is that suffice?
Oh, that works for me. So I will get the final documentation and we'll get it on the commission's agenda. I think that, so it'll be received. We'll schedule it for a hearing. It'll probably be a good idea for at least someone from the commission. Obviously I'll be there for the for P and Z, but it would be good if somebody, I'm sure John will go, but from EDC could represent this or just explain how we got here for the purposes of anybody who's attending the public hearing, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yep, sounds good. I'm happy to attend, and anybody else who wants to attend, please do.
What's the
Mike-
date on that
Yeah, I was
next
gonna
upcoming meeting?
So if we received it, let me look. So we meet the 1st and 3rd Tuesday.
Okay. So the 16th, but you're not gonna do it then.
The earliest we could do is if we got it wrapped up, I could receive it on the 16th and then schedule it for the first meeting in April.
Oh, okay.
Great.
So that would be the day to attend potentially, would be
So
April
we would-
6th.
The earliest we could open the meeting would be, right, the first meeting in April, and we can push it back if you wanted to slow it down, but that would be the earliest.
I prefer not to slow it down if we don't have to. That'd be great. John, would you mind sending the PDF of those changes around to the group so we had them in hard copy?
Absolutely. And I
Thank
mean,
you.
it's neither here nor there, because Mike can represent this, well, Mike can speak to it also, but I have a conflicting meeting on the 6th. I'm available on the 20th, but that's, if my participation is important, but
I'll talk to the commission if we have the other hearing. We have a public hearing for a text amendment that's currently open. We've got to do all of our sand and gravel renewals upcoming. So they may want to push it just so that they can not have it overlap with other sort of big ticket items. So I'll let you know.
Thank you,
and
Mike.
I'll circulate it, Rick.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. So all in favor of the motion? That would be aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you so much, John and Mike. It's a really good job. I mean, it's really reflective of that village study and the plan of conservation and development. I mean, it's really, really exciting to see this happen. Okay, so next item on the agenda is the sidewalk project. As you all know, Mike was able to get a grant for the east-facing half of this sidewalk project that probably is going to be necessary to put this entire village project together from Hall Memorial School all the way to the Fish and Game Club. We're kind of doing half of this project right now, and we'd like to see if we can assist the town in proposing a second phase to this project. So I would just open that up for discussion to see what the commission was thinking about.
Nice job, Mike, first of all. What's the timing on this?
We're finalizing the first step in the DOT portion of the project because it's a state road, and they had identified necessary improvements in front of the school and the church anyways. So we've had to just coordinate with what those changes were. And we've kind of checked that box this week. The goal is, because we really don't want this to happen while school is in session, to construct next summer.
Mhm.
So what we will do is finalize the grant information. We will bid to final design, complete final design plans, and then bid construction.
Okay. So you're talking summer of 2022 as a,
Have we done any drawings or rough sketches or anything like that? Any visuals or?
We have a concept plan that was submitted as concept level plan, which was submitted as part of the application to CROG. So we just got approval from the Board of Finance to pay for the design, which will bring us to project level specs. So right now we just have the concept plans.
Can you send those to me? Do you have them in PDF?
Yeah, I may have to split them up in size. I can share my screen if you want to see them now and then try to break them up.
Just like 60 seconds of, oh yeah, there's a picture.
Yeah.
As I mentioned in the Board of Finance, I used to live, I owned a house on the south end of Middletown next to Wesleyan. And there was an urban planning professor there who was successful in getting the city of Middletown to change their road. So they changed it. They put parking on the sides. They put parallel parking on the sides. They made the road curve. They used bricks and sidewalks, planters, bricks in the road. But what was a raceway road became a very pleasant, quaint road. And I was wondering if that's something, I guess they call that traffic interruption or whatever, but I was wondering how much we had thought about that and what the plans were for doing something like that.
Okay. So you should be able to see my screen.
Yep.
So we're in a bit of a different position because this is a state road and the speeds are faster. So when the speeds are faster, we need to be able to provide a certain distance for sight lines.
Yep.
And so the problem that we have with this roadway is that the speeds are high, but there is a rise as you head towards the church. So they don't have a lot of sight distance for the speed that they're traveling. And so we're limited in what we can do, but I'll kind of just go over what the plans include. So the first step is to install a protected crossing by the parking lot to the entrance to the school. I don't know if any of you know where the way it is now, but when you cross here, you are met with stairs. And
Yeah.
so if you're in a wheelchair, you
Can't make
can't get from the parking lot to the school. So we will fix that and install a protected crosswalk here with a pedestrian refuge point in the middle so that people have a chance to watch for traffic without being stuck in the middle of the road. Then moving north, again, another crossing here. There's existing sidewalks and crossing. The summer camp for town here is at the school and they walk to the pond. So we're fixing this entire intersection to reflect, making it safe for them to actually do that. There's currently no sidewalk in the little island on the school side of the driveway. So we'll install that. And then the sidewalk, which runs in front of the school, which comes along the road, then it hooks back and then it comes back along the road. We're going to reconstruct that and realign that to fix the grades and also bring it back from the road. The school has a problem with plowing because when the plows come by, they just dump it on the sidewalk because it's right against the road. So we will fix that as well and then reconstruct the stairs that are there so that they match. And then next page. Next page. So left side of the screen is where we just left off. So we're fix that crosswalk, reconstruct all of the sidewalks that are there to current specs, add the crosswalk for the driveway curb cut that exists, and then install a pedestrian and ADA accessible crossing in front of the church, right by the church basically, and then another protected refuge point at the parking lot. The other thing that we are doing is, and bear with me, I am going to go back. If you'll see a note, is provide a crosswalk. So we're going to be installing RRFB, which is a rapid flashing beacon. So it's one of those things that will flash when the pedestrian is in the road so that when the cars are coming up over the hill, they'll see that beacon and they'll know that there's a pedestrian in the roadway. So that is basically, those are the limits of the grant.
Can you go forward to the one to the right?
Yep.
So that on I don't know what this is, north, south, east, west, but at the top,
The top is west.
the west. So there's a sidewalk on the west part. Now, it doesn't seem as though you're doing anything with that.
So I don't know how much of that. Yeah, so there's some on this side. The problem with this is there's no safe crossing point. The crosswalks are here. So you have a little chunk of it here, but we can't bring it all the way this way. It's because of the grades and the way things exist as you head towards the mill. We would have to then get them back across the road to the east side. And so we ran it on the current side because the sidewalks existed, but it also minimized the number of crossings. So that increased safety, but also kept our costs down.
I understand. Thanks for sharing.
Yep, no problem.
Well, that's great, Mike. So what we would like to do is propose some design work for the rest of this project. That brings you up in front of the mill, in front of the, all the way up to the Fish and Game Club. So if we can get some cost estimates for site work, you know, maybe the Economic Development Commission can go to the Board of Finance with a conceptual plan, and we can get some of that site work done so that when some of this infrastructure money is going to come down the pike, we'll be pretty much shovel ready to get this done. So, you know, the thought here was to get some conceptual drawings, to get some design work done to bring us all the way up to the mill.
I'd like to make a suggestion in the future. I don't know if you've already discussed this, but I don't recall us discussing this. When you do what Rick is talking about and you're estimating, I would think it would be smart to include one of the protected crosswalks across from the mill, because they do those music nights and things like that. And sometimes they're taking place in the evening and it's very hard to see. They do hire somebody sometimes, I think, to actually stand outside, but I don't know if, because there's a corner there and it's like, you know, 25 miles per hour already that people aren't going. I know the school may be a better place. I'm not a better place, but like people may not look at having a beacon there as important as at the school, but that would, a flashing light or something there indicating that there may be people crossing the street would be a very wise move if we're doing a budget, an estimated budget or a request. If we don't get it, we don't get it.
We, so yeah, I'm sure that at least some of you know that Tom Busino and people that are tenants at the mill have been very vocal about the fact that they are unhappy that this project does not include their property. I have met with Tom. I have tried to explain to him as many times as I have been able as to why. The fact of the matter is we ran out of money to be able to ask for in the grant, and it becomes more complicated in front of his building because as you come down the hill, we lose the sight lines that are required for the crossings. And so there's a little bit more that has to be dealt with there. We are obligated to use pricing that the state basically says, you know, this is what you have to use for this. You have to build in contingency, you have to build in, you know, all these backstops because the project takes time, so that we don't end up with a, you know, okay, we need 600,000, but we only got 500. So we definitely recognize the need there. But we have to figure out, like talking about this as a phase 2, there's retaining wall in front of High Chase, which is likely going to need to be repaired, which is going to be extremely expensive. And then there's this issue of a crossing and the sight lines. So that's going to be a little bit more extensive to engineer, but we did talk about that with him, and he did ask for that. I guess they had a pedestrian that was killed in front of the mill in the last couple of years. So it's, and I don't know under what circumstance, but it's definitely on our radar. And so, yeah, the first step, I think, and if you look at this, the sidewalk study from the town, would be to identify through a concept level cost estimate what we are looking for as far as costs to construct. And that will give us an idea of the total size of the project, and then we can continue to seek grant funding or other means. But right now we don't know how much it would cost. And I think that's probably the first step.
That's exactly right, Mike. You know, without really having a good plan and knowing what the initial design phase is going to cost, it's very difficult for us to fund it, really. I know that Tom Busino did go to the Capital Improvement Committee with an old number. I think the number was around $35,000 for the design phase of this project, all the way up to the mill. But we just don't know what that is. So we would like to task Mike and John, with kind of looking at a concept for the second phase and see if we could get a cost estimate for the engineering and the design of that second phase. Typically, that's going to be anywhere from $24,000 all the way up to about 40 grand. So that's kind of the scope of this request would be around that amount. And then Economic Development Committee can then go to the Board of Finance and actually have something concrete to discuss and see if the town would like to fund that, or if they want to wait or see what they want to do. So what does the commission think about doing that?
I think that's great, but I have one further question. Would it be possible to do like a phase 2 and a phase 3? So like a phase 2 up to the High Manor or whatever it's called, and then, beyond that where there's the mill and there's the little buildings there? Or do you think that would create stress on Tom and the relationship?
Well, we're
I think-
thinking that this phase 2 will bring us from the completion of the sidewalk all the way up to the Fish and Game Club, Sam. One
I
concern-
think I must be misunderstanding where the Fish and Game Club is. I thought that was beyond the mill.
It is. So
Oh,
we
okay.
want to go from Village Street, which is where this.
So you don't want a set, you want just enough phase 2. You don't want to
Yeah.
try to
Right.
ease our way in the door
No,
with
no,
the
let-
finance
let's do
committee
the
with
whole
a
thing,
phase 2
yeah.
and 3. Okay.
And the phase 3 is interesting, Sam, because when I think about phase 3, what happens when we go around the corner and a little bit up the hill near the veterinarian center, and we have that large facility that sits down in the howl there, which is the old Jerry's Tavern. We would like the phase 2 to encompass and capture Jerry's Tavern, but we have a real difficult time thinking about once we come around the corner and up the hill, which may be phase 3. I mean, that's something that if we can get phase 1 done and we can get phase 2 done, can we then kind of look up the hill and see, okay, what kind of improvements can we make to traffic and the like, coming around that very dangerous curve. As Mike had said, there was a fatality right at that curve a couple of years ago. A very good friend of my family had died in a motorcycle accident right there. So that curve is really dangerous and tricky, and I don't know what it would take to actually fix that, so that would be phase 3.
Excuse me.
So I would make a motion that we ask Mike and John to produce some draft documents for the commission to look at for phase 2, some concept and some pricing of what that would look like. I'll have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Any discussion on the motion?
Mike, we're going to talk to Pete about that. Is that what we're going to do?
So if Rick wants to send me, well, I can get it too, but if you want to send me the budget, one of the things, so if this commission has it in the budget, then I'm happy to, we can coordinate that. John and I can coordinate concept level plans, which would be very inexpensive, I would say.
Yeah.
Like design plans, we are looking at in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000. And then construction costs, could be $500,000 to $750,000 based on that. So,
But a concept, we're talking under $2,000.
Yep.
Yeah, I just for everyone, I don't know where the proper place to express this is, but that I think we're looking at this as a future economic development kind of opportunity. A little village in South Willington it'll increase our tax base and be a little center kind of thing. And right now that's on a highway, and it's a highway that people go 45, 50, 55 miles an hour on. So I've seen these kinds of things work before. You go to some areas of Lime, some areas of, I can't think of any right now, but, and you have a nice little wonderful area with old buildings and it's quaint and all that sort of thing. That's not what South Willington is, or at least when I look at it. When I look at South Willington, it's a nice little area. It's not that kind of quaint little village kind of area. And as long as we have a highway going through it at 45 or 50 miles an hour, or 40 or whatever the speed limit is, I'm not quite sure.
35.
35, okay. That it's not going to work. I don't mean to be negative, but it's not slow enough for people to view that as a village area, as a little restauranty, little shops kind of center of town kind of area.
Doesn't have that Georgetown effect you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't know what the proper terminology is. As you can tell, I'm struggling, but I would just emphasize that making if the state says that we have, if the state, I think we should pressure the state, the highway department or whatever it is, to make changes. If the speed limit is 35 and people are going 45, we should push them to make it 25.
The speed limit going up and down the curve that Mike is talking about is
20.
25.
That's 25.
And then
So
when
the
you-
town,
Okay.
the town has requested the speed limit be reduced multiple times and the state has denied each request. That's my understanding. Historically, they have asked that. And I think that from what I gather from the superintendent, it's not uncommon. I think state police have done some speed monitoring, and it's not uncommon for you to get a car that's going 70.
Yeah.
They've got speeds 80, 90 miles an hour late at night. So it's a crazy traffic area.
Yeah. It's like we're talking about, well, we said I don't know, several $100,000 investment in sidewalks, which is great, and crossing walks and signage and all that sort of thing. I'm just saying that we should try to force a change in that road, such that it will be something that people view as, yes, I can see putting a building here for a little shop, that kind of thing. Or else it's just going to be like well, that's my input. What does everyone else think?
I think it's good input, Matt. My concern, we're kind of doing this on the cheap because what we're really doing is we're fixing the sidewalks and we're fixing the parking in essence for the school and to bring the sidewalk all the way up to the mill. We're not doing the real redevelopment work that is necessary to make that a village, which would probably be more expensive. I mean, you need to stop the flow of traffic moving at that rate of speed, and then you need to widen the road and the like. Yes. I don't know that we're there yet, but I'm interested to see what the impact of the zoning regulation change will be on the village too, because those occupants have been not been allowed to actually exercise some economic freedom in that village, which I think is really necessary. Every time the mill wants to put in a business, they've got to come to planning and zoning and get a variance to the residential zone, which is just unreasonable. So I think once you change the zone, you make some improvements to the sidewalk, and then we step back and we look at that village. Are there other things that we can do to do exactly what you would like to see in there, make it more of a slower paced, shopping center in essence.
Yeah.
And that's where you really make the difference.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick. I just, maybe, if we can just put a line in, a suggestion possible is that we could put a line in that says with a future eye towards, slowing down traffic and increasing, or Mike, you had a terminology that you used in the Board of Finance meeting. You called it traffic mitigation or traffic slowdown or something.
Traffic calming?
Yeah, traffic calming. If we could just I think that's what I'm saying. So
And
go ahead.
sorry, Matt. There's actually a pretty well-known principle that the best traffic calming is activity. People drive as fast as they feel comfortable driving. And if there's a lot of stuff going on, if there are pedestrians walking up and down the street, people slow down.
Yep. If there's
That's
trees-
what I'm thinking, is that you're saying, oh, let's get a slowdown and then people will look at the buildings. No, they might right now see chipping paint, you know what I'm saying? So like, if we improve the buildings first, get the zoning change, get it to where somebody like, even somebody like myself, like I would love to own something where there would be a commercial aspect, you know, have a little shop out the side of my house or something like that. And then we're advertising those businesses, getting traffic there. Then I think the traffic will cause the slowdown, you know, people being there. But it's like one of those things where everything's coming together and then will crystallize. So I think you have a worthy suggestion, but I just think since it's been tried before, maybe we should try a different horse first. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And I think, Sam, my experience has always been that, you know, you can have that as your goal, that traffic calming and, you know, increasing, you know, the use of that village area. And, you know, eventually by doing some of these things, we actually get there, you know, so, yeah. So I've got a motion on the table to have Mike and John look at this concept design and get us some numbers for what this would look like so that we can get to Board of Finance to take a peek at it. And I think we've got a second on the table. All in favor? Aye. Okay, let's move on to the rail project update.
Actually,
Oh,
Rick,
go
before
ahead.
we move,
Sorry, John.
before we
Yep.
move on,
Please.
something that we were just thinking about with Mike and my collective shared consciousness, that given this discussion about sidewalk, we might want to throw a requirement in for new construction in South Willington Village that basically requires, if there's not a sidewalk in front of the project, that they add a sidewalk.
Yep.
So to make sure that, you know, so if someone redevelops an area in South Willington that isn't currently covered, that the town doesn't have to bear that expense, and the owner will continue the sidewalk network. So we could just throw that in with your sort of consensus agreement. I'll just add a clause in there in the South Willington regs to discuss sidewalks.
Yeah, and when Matt was looking at the other side, the west side of that project, you know, I mean, if somebody was to develop that west side of the project, they'd be required to put in sidewalks there, which would be effective and a good suggestion. So any opposition to John's suggested tweak? Okay, hearing none. John, you can make that tweak. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. So we'll go on to, so Bill, if you could give us a little update on the rail project.
Met with Mr. Desiato on Monday of this week. We actually had to back that up from about 3 weeks ago. And it was a COVID-19 meeting because we originally were going to go to Track 9 and they were closed. So we moved it up to Dunkin' Donuts, and the only thing at Dunkin' Donuts was open was the drive-through. So we had a COVID-19 meeting in my truck. And Phil is at the same point that we're at right now, and that is that the access to the property needs to be off of 74 as opposed to 32. And I think his reasoning and my reasoning in advocating this is I don't believe the town and the residents of the town would be able to live with the traffic entering and exiting off of 32. So we discussed, and John and I had 2 discussions prior to this meeting. And that was to move Phil along, but I can tell you, John, he's already there. That he agrees the access to the location needs to come off of 74. It will be close to 84, far enough away from residential properties. And he's very willing, and he wants to meet with John. I don't know, did he reach out to speak to you, John?
Yeah, we talked this afternoon.
Good.
and actually had a brief conversation, but actually very productive. He wants to get together with you, Bill, and me, and Mike, although I had to explain for a long time who Mike was, so I don't know what that's about. And
I told him, Mike, you were very sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the guy holding the cards for him to renew his excavation
Right.
permit.
So Bill is actually, I'm sorry, Phil is fairly busy over the next couple of weeks, but suggested that we convene in about a month's time. And what I suggested to him was I would try to invite along a traffic engineer or transportation engineer who would walk the site with us, basically to get a little bit of free advice and free eyes on the ground, with the hopes that this traffic engineer could provide us a proposal for what it's going to cost to do that study. But Phil understood and agreed that really the next step is to do some preliminary engineering, just to figure out the geometry and the likely traffic numbers and the truck size that would need to exit onto 74 at that point, and just how big a lift it was going to be from a logistical standpoint.
It's complicated. It is.
So and Phil understood that, if this was going to be a legit option, and if he wanted to do this, he was going to have to invest a little bit of money in doing some engineering logistics.
I had the same conversation with him. How did you read his body language?
I was just talking on the phone, so I didn't read it at all.
How did you read his verbal language?
I couched it in a way that said, listen, you're gonna have to make an investment here, but the town will do what it can to be a partner on it. So I think he kind of was like, yeah, okay. Well,
Can I spitball something that occurred to me a couple of days ago? I'm going to share my screen. So the main issue is access to 74. I know that we talked about. All right, I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see our GIS map?
No. Yes.
Okay, so main access point is we want to have it out to 74, and so this is his site. We've got one piece here. Then can you see my mouse moving?
Yes.
Yep.
So this is Phelps and this is Phelps. This is all one piece. They're almost 12 acres. There's some wetlands and some stuff here.
Mike, before you go, are there different owners on that Phelps property? Or is it
No,
one?
it's since been combined.
Okay.
But what's important, and I don't want to click because that red line will move away, but let's just say that's the access point. Comes through to here. This building is what's in the way.
Yep.
And the Phelps Plaza owner had originally indicated that they wanted to use it as a garden shop. They are 3 to 4 weeks from opening. That building is empty. And if there's any potential that this land is needed, I think it would be important to contact the building owner now before he starts investing money in a building that is falling apart. It's just a thought I had that I'm thinking if this is our only access point and this building is in the way and it's fallen down and he hasn't started to use it, we might want to tell him, have a conversation so he, can make a decision or tell us where he's at. And that's the extent of my my aha moment.
I think it's a good aha moment, Mike, too, because maybe we can actually get access to the back of his property through some sort of some way to get back there too. So maybe you do two things at once. You get access through the site, and then you bring the Phelps Plaza back, back a little bit. I mean, how many acres is that? Is that 10 acres?
So the Phelps Plaza site, including the area that is shown as 15, but is one parcel, is just under 12.
Okay. I mean, maybe they could develop the rear of that property.
the current owner of the Phelps property, has he just put that up for sale again after he made all the fixes on that property? Is it for sale or is he just trying to lease it?
No. The owner is getting ready to open. The owner of the plaza is the owner of the business Lots and More. So he will be operating that retail location, but he is the owner.
Okay.
Mike, have you given any thought to whether that plaza actually could expand to the back?
I think that where the existing septic is, where the wetlands are, and the slope would probably make that tricky. I don't know for sure. Access is kind of hard, but I'm thinking if that's really the only option, I thought it might be worth a conversation to the owner to see what his overall plans are. If he's thinking I'm not going to use it or I don't need it, and he can become a bit of a partner because he has the vast majority of frontage along the rail line is him. I think it would be a good conversation to have.
How can we do that? Could you reach out, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great.
Mike, could you go back to the other map that you showed, the land in between what Phil owns and Santilli?
Yep.
So between what Desiato, where his property line ends, and there's one area there that owner, we might have to have a conversation with that owner about buying some land from him or her for the right of way, because the rail has a right of way from 40 feet either side of the center of the track. So I think John and Mike in our conversations with Phil, and he's aware of this, believe me, he's a very sharp man, is that we're gonna have to come up with, these are the hurdles that we need to address with regards to, as Mike just brought up about the strip mall there, and having that owner or the name of that owner as a possible candidate that we need to talk to. What he did mention to me several times, because of the history that he's had, not only with the town of Willington, but the town of Mansfield, is he's interested in the fact that they're open for business and that they are and will support this type of project before he ends up spending a lot of time, effort, and money. So that became very evident in our discussions, and I agreed with him that as we go down this road, it's important to know as it gains momentum that we're not going to run into a speed bump, whether it's created or real, that he needs to address, and getting the support of the town for a project like this. So my read is he's on board, but we've got to do it in a twofold way. One is work with him along the lines of what's necessary to come out and enter off of 74, and what's necessary to have the proper clearance to get there. And that's where I think it's at. And I think he's very willing to make the investment, but I also think he wants to make sure that the town is on board.
Yeah, it's a good point, Bill. And there's probably a cheap way to do that. I mean, there's going to need to be some zoning changes to this parcel. So, we could put together a sketch and he could file the application for the zone change, and he would know in short order whether, this is going to float or not. So we'll get to that point, but it's a very good point, Bill. So Mike, you're showing us something here.
It's just the next step,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the actual survey that we had for Phelps when they came in. So it just gives you an idea of the layout, and they've got these weird jogs in their property line. This is the building that we were just talking about, right in this area here, and then the property line, you can see jogs 29 feet he's got 1,100 feet of length along the rail.
Track.
And then it jogs back again 19 feet, and then it connects back this way. So it's just a little bit more accurate. The GIS is just a general overview. So we do have this. It gives you an idea of how the properties are connected.
The way
Can
we,
you bring me out to the frontage there, Mike?
Sure.
the way we left it was once we accomplish the meeting with John and Mike and their group, that we will bring in the engineers, the industrial engineers from the railroad that are located down in Jacksonville. I had a conversation with the champion, my main contact, Ed Foley, about bringing them up to take a look at the land itself and then start mapping out from a rail point of view the utilization or the possible utilization on both sides of the track. So he agrees with that also, that once we want to walk before we run, but part of the walk before the run will be to bring the engineers in to look at the land from the perspective of rail utilization. We know it's got 14-foot frontage, but what you want now is someone who's experienced in setting up the correct utilization of the actual land itself. And I think that where Phil also sees the opportunity to help in the remedial work of the land itself. So on his exit strategy, he's done with the land. He's pulled all the gravel out of there since 1980. And now on the backside of his investment, he's going to be able to do the remedial work. So he's got a plus here. That's why I think he's interested. And Mike, I'll caution you when you're talking to the people about that building, because they're going to ask you when. And this thing is, you're talking 2, 3, 4 years out. So they could do the business if you fail, and we'll talk to them when it fails.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Bill, for that update. Any questions for Bill, me, or Mike, or John?
I was watching YouTube the other day, and I saw a 30-second TV YouTube commercial by the railroad talking about container shipping, the port in I think it's New Brunswick. The rail lines are going down into Groton, New London, and down Vermont and all that sort. There's an entire TV commercial all about exactly what you're bringing, what we're talking about here, Bill, which is
Matt, the market momentum right now is amazing.
it's the only time I've ever seen a TV commercial or a commercial for a railroad.
The CSX 10, 15 years ago said they no longer wanted to run past Worcester. And they sold their lines back to the state of Massachusetts. And because they didn't want the liability of maintaining the railroad with all the passenger service. That was the excuse. The reason they sold it is they didn't want to run into Boston. And they sold it for $200 million. And they just purchased the Pan Am Railroad, which is a New England-based railroad. It runs Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, a little bit of Connecticut, and then over to the Maritimes, to a little town called St. John's, where they're going to put a major port operation for $880 million. Yeah. And the reason they're doing that is two effects. One is the trucking industry realizes that 10 years from now, people do not want to spend 2 weeks on the road and not see their family. And the second one is the green effect. So the railroads now realize they need to industrial develop the land on their rail lines to service retail, commercial warehouses, frozen warehouses, and that's what we're looking at right now in terms of the investment.
I was just shocked that I'm sitting there and I look over and I see a Willington Economic Development Commission folder on my desk, and I look at my computer screen and there's a commercial for the railroad. It was quite astounding.
and we're ahead of it. What I like about it is that we're ahead of it. And we need to get their engineers from the railroad, and then we need to get on their website. And they're going to be out there pushing this with the class one. So it's the timing is right, except it's not going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
Well, that's going to stay on our agenda, Bill. Okay, so we'll go to new business. I know that Matt had some interest in maybe seeing, kind of looking at what the signage is in town. You know, and after that conversation, I kind of went around town a little bit and I said, you know, the signage in town basically is, it's a mess. So, I mean, I don't know what this might mean, Matt. You know, we have a little bit of money in the budget. We could probably throw a couple of $100s out there to develop some signs if you thought that was appropriate, or if you want to do a sign study, or what your thought was. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, bringing everyone up to speed. I have friends that work at the FedEx in warehouse in Willington, and they tell me that 10 times a day we have tractor trailers that are making a wrong turn and going into FedEx off the highway. They're trying to get to TA and they can't. They screw it up. That's you know. My only thought is we want happy customers. I mean, we want people to be able to find their way around. I mean, you know, there's no reason for this to happen. I mean, if I got lost and went into someone's warehouse with my truck, I wouldn't take that exit again. I would wait for the next one, and we don't want that to happen to our business. We don't want that to happen to our TA. We want them anyway. I just thought it would be really good to just put up a sign there that says TA with a sign with an arrow that says, you know, right, you know, don't go straight, go right. And that's going to become more of an issue as, you know, we have the new one going across the street or across the highway, because now they're going to be like, okay, which way do I go? And you know, so anyway, I don't know. I was thinking about it, and it's like it would be a good idea. I don't know if we need a study or anything like that. I just want to, you know, inexpensively, you know, and it would also prove to FedEx that we care about them. Hey, what happened? What's that sign doing down there? The town put it up because we don't want you guys. We don't want any problems. We want to, you know, we're here to serve you. So.
And on top of the sign, we can say, welcome to Willington.
Yeah.
I mean, we can advertise for us and what we do and who we're about. So,
yeah, I mean,
sure.
Sounds corny, but it works.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes sometimes simple stuff works. So.
Yep. Mike, any thoughts on if we could construct a sign, if we could put a sign up somewhere? Or maybe we do it on the FedEx, maybe we partner with FedEx and talk to them, see what their thoughts are.
Yeah, I have talked with DOT about signage in front of TA because of the multiple curb cuts and the fact that trucks go in and cars go in the truck entrance only, and the issues that it creates. The town has been trying to get them to fix the signage in that area. The long and short of it is Ruby Road in the intersection there is a state road. So to put up signs, you have two options. One, spend the money, put it up, and it stays up until DOT sees it and takes it down, or try to get DOT to agree to that. My guess is they're going to tell you no, because they're not going to allow a private business to advertise on state property. But I've never specifically asked them, you know, for that type of. Now, could you put up a directional sign that said the address? Maybe, but
Truck stop. It doesn't have to say TA, just truck stop with an arrow. And you know, in my mind, it's better to act and ask for forgiveness than to ask for forgiveness first. So.
Remove it. Yep.
Oh, Samantha.
As long as it's put in a safe place and it meets the code, you know, and no one's going to run over it.
Yeah.
Call 811 before you dig a hole, and you know, smart idea.
Sam, did you have a comment?
Oh no.
Okay, I guess not. All right, so let's keep it on the agenda. Let's make this happen. We've got to figure out how to do it, but I mean, I'm up to talking to DOT. You know, they have a pretty good sized facility in the middle of our town. And I'm not too happy about the streetscape that exists there. So maybe we have that discussion, and as a back door, we get the sign. You know?
Leverage works, huh?
Right, whatever works, right? So I'll put that on my agenda and I'll get that done.
Good.
All right, great. Any other business before the commission? Mike, John, Bill?
I'm here, Rick.
Oh, okay. Hi,
it's
Cheryl. Okay, great.
Hi, I'm sorry I had issues, you guys, when I logged in. I'm not a Zoom girl. I'm a Teams girl, so I'm getting there. And I'm on my phone, so that's why I'm not on video. I have a personal laptop, Rick, on order. So as soon as I get that, it will be much better. But nice
Well-
to see you. I hope Jack is well.
Well, thank you,
Sam and I
Cheryl.
have been chatting. Sam and I have been chatting through Facebook throughout the meeting. She wasn't sure I was here, so I did just want to say hello to everybody and thank you for welcoming me.
Hi.
Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're just so happy to have you.
I appreciate it. And I told Sam, Rick, if you need somebody to take notes, that's kind of like my forte, guys. I
Great.
just retired from Scouts after about 20 years of being both on Cubs and Scout committee. My son made Eagle, so I'm done there. And I also sit on the Substance Abuse Support Committee through the Human Health Services in the town of Willington. I'm an active member on that commission as well, or board, and I take notes for them as well. So I'm happy to step in and do that for you gentlemen if you'd like me to do that.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. We may take you up on that. I mean, we need
Okay.
somebody to do the minutes, so we would love to have you do that. That sounds great.
Okay.
One final,
Hey, I secured a secretary for you.
Yes, you did.
It's a higher
I
level
said, they're
job
gonna
than
ask you
that.
to be the secretary. I'm letting you know
No,
right
no,
now.
no.
And she was like, I'd love to.
Yep, that's my thing. So you got it.
So,
Oh yeah, we forgot about Willington, all those years on Willington too, the baseball. So yeah, I did that for years as secretary too. So it's kind of my thing.
It's great.
she took notes for me when I was
8th grade. Yep. dance
8th
committee.
grade. I was doing the dance committee. Sorry,
Yep.
we had a penny balanced budget, and she took my notes for me with. So she does do a really good job with the details that
Thank
we
you,
forgot.
Sam.
So,
Thank you.
Sounds good, Cheryl. Thank you.
You're
One-
welcome.
one final point,
So
guys.
you're asking if there's, I know it's 7:30 already, so you
Mm-hmm.
had some things on here that, did we not have time to get to those this time? Or do you
No,
want to just
let's
talk
let's
with me?
let's
or-
open them up. I mean, we're on new
All
business
right, well,
here,
we got
so
the,
yes.
I wrote,
yes.
I saw that you wrote on the agenda to update the contacts on the website, but I did
Right.
look around the website, and the only thing I can see is that where it says contact, like staff, Willington Economic Staff, the email it's going to, I guess I don't really know where to receive emails from that, for one. And the email says info@g42.868, you know, like how it pops up. So I did that during the meeting. I went in there at myftpupload.com. So I don't know where that email is going.
I don't know.
I don't know if John is, I don't know,
Okay.
maybe he's talking to someone else. I thought he was
Yeah.
talking, noting that since they help work on the website.
Right.
So
right.
I just need to know which, I'd like to have like a proxy email and just have it come to my email so that I could
Okay.
answer requests from the website. So like figuring that out would be really helpful. And then with the list of businesses, I'll get in there and work on it. I mean, it's just something we kind of said we were going to talk about, and I haven't gotten there to explore. I want to
Okay.
do more like a task thing, because I'm just like a better taskmaster. So like list of businesses, one thing I can see right now is that they're double listed, that somebody has gone in and done the addresses, which is really helpful. But sometimes they're double listed with addresses and in one thing, and then the next one is just the name of it and the phone number. So I'll clean that part up. But when you were talking about update contacts, I don't see anywhere. I was assuming you meant how Rich is no longer, like just contacts of people that are on the board, etc. Are you talking about with Willington, Connecticut, with the Willington website when you were talking about updated contacts? Because I did not see a contact list on the regular website, that willingtonbusiness.com.
Right. I was talking about updating all the business contacts, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'll do is
Now, I also noticed you just sent, call just before this about a little blurb to put into the Parks and Rec, into the Willington Wire.
Right,
Do
right.
you want me to write that?
I would love you to write that, Sam.
All right, I'll
Thank you for
write that. I'll
volunteering.
send it to you
Yep.
tomorrow or the next day. And I will put a call for businesses at the end. Like, just say something like, we just want to let you know that we're here. We can talk about it through Facebook or whatever, but then I can just put a little call at the end, call to action, please contact, you know. That's why I want to have this updated though, whatever email address it would be, please contact that email address with your information to be included on the website. And for any assistance with, you know, any, you know, I'll figure out the language, but you know, any way we can help you to be successful and prosper here and
Great.
make contact with
Great.
other businesses and whatnot. So I just thought an intro of who we are, what we're doing, and then at the end, a call to action for anyone that wants to be included in our literature.
I think that's great. And I'll contact Noah Vertife, who
Mhm.
has connections to the website, and I'll figure out how to get you into it and how to change the contacts.
No, I have information about, oh, you're talking about the Willington, Connecticut one? No,
No, the
I
economic
have,
development
no,
website.
Kelsey sent me the whole
Oh,
tutorial.
okay,
So I
okay.
have a password and everything like that, but I just didn't know, but they create the proxy email usually. So that
Okay.
part I just don't know about. Would it be like info@willingtonbusiness.com, like, you know, something like that, .com, and where would I access that email? That's my only question about the email. I mean, if you want to contact him, that's fine, but I do have a tutorial from Kelsey with directions on how to
Right. So if
change the
Kelsey or,
blocks in the website.
yeah, so if Kelsey or you can change the email address and proxy it so it goes directly to you, that would be great.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how to do that part. I know that I think when I've done websites in the past, I think that the website developer did do the proxy part.
Okay.
Like that part was they did,
So-
or else my email, I think I had a work email. So I just
Okay.
sent it to myself. Yes.
So you guys have a domain, you have the willingtonbusiness.com domain, but you do not
Mhm.
have, in my understanding, any email. So
Any emails? Okay.
you guys would have to buy an email address to actually then pay to have it hosted on the domain, you know, like we pay in Willington, you know, it's like a certain amount of money per month per account. So for every user. The easier thing to do would probably be to set up a Willington EDC Gmail account, which is
Yeah.
free, and have
Yeah.
the Willington website push to that Gmail account, and the
Yeah, I can
Gmail
do that.
account can auto forward. Because I don't think you want to get into having to pay a monthly fee.
Well, I'll just
for a web-
access the Gmail account. I'll create that Gmail account and I'll access it, and that'll give me a way to share a drive with everybody anyway.
Great.
We've shared drives before, and we'll share it through that then. I just didn't know if they had one. I guess when I worked with it before, we must have, you know, the businesses or the organizations I've been with where I've worked on their Facebook page, they must have purchased a package that had a certain number of emails or something like that. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that information. That's helpful.
Like with
So
Outlook and
nix
Microsoft. it's
that,
like-
Rick.
Got it. Okay, good. All right. Do you have anything else, Sam?
No, so we just want to work on updating that. And like I said, and then one of the things we talked about in the past was how to get the information, how to harvest all the names of businesses,
Yep.
and getting a little spot in the Willington
Right,
Wire is going
right.
to help a lot with
And,
that.
and that's
So
kind of the
there's
second
two
phase
problems.
of this, right? That second phase of this, and we can talk about how to do that. I mean, we can do it at Willington Day. We can do it through the Secretary of State. We can, you know, there's some
Ooh, we should have a
strategies.
booth at Willington Day. Yeah.
We can do that.
Okay.
Okay,
All
good.
right. Sounds good.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so I think that we'll adjourn. Thank you very much, everybody.
Be well.
Good night.
Good night.